of you who I have not met, my name is Greg Halfon. I am the Faculty Director of the Honors Program. This is our most important, I think, event every single year where we have a chance to honor our thesis writers, but more broadly, to acknowledge the hard work that these students have done over the course of their time at Framingham State. So if parents and faculty don't mind for a second, I'm going to address the students directly. So, as I just implied, we call this the thesis dinner because we do want to acknowledge the fact that all of you students out there have spent this entire semester, in some cases even a little more than a semester, working tremendously hard, researching, writing, analyzing, and thinking about important and interesting topics of your choosing. So I don't want to diminish in any way, shape, or form that accomplishment, and that is one of the major purposes of this dinner, to acknowledge that. At the same time, I know, and you all know, that the honors program is more than just the thesis, more than just the thesis course. You all have completed nearly half a dozen honors courses in a variety of disciplines, everything from courses in the fine arts, to the natural sciences, to the social sciences, to the humanities. You've maintained a grade point average of a 3.20 in your overall academic studies over the course of 4 years. You've earned a grade of B or higher in every single one of those honors courses. You worked tremendously hard over 4 years to maintain and to excel in the honors program. So while we call this a thesis dinner, I want to acknowledge this is really to congratulate you and to acknowledge the fact that you have been working tremendously hard, not just in the last 3 months on your thesis, but over the last 3 to 4 years. So maybe it's a little premature, but would we please have a round of applause for us. So without further ado, it gives me great honor to welcome to the podium the president of Framingham State University, President Nancy.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our celebration of Framingham State University Honors Program. As we begin our celebration of the program and of all of you, the goals of which this program has been drawn on have been to nurture your creative and analytical talents, to foster your intellectual growth, and I ask, what's the most recent thing you heard, saw, or experienced, or read in which the creator really piqued your interest? Who made you look at something completely differently, and how did they do it? For me, recently, it was the author Geraldine Brooks, who took the mostly absent character of the father of Louisa May Alcott's Little Women, Mr. March, and asked, what was he doing during the time period of this novel? What if I tell his story? Brooks developed a story about a middle-aged man who enlists in the Northern Army during the U.S. Civil War and, in a deeply provocative way, allowed me, to not only see the little women of this story, but also the issue of race in the United States today in a whole new way. I read that book and I sobbed with deeper understanding and changed understanding.
Our next writer is Ryan Nicholas, whose thesis, An Extensive History of Organized Labor, Institutional Responses, and the Politics of Socialism in the United States, was supervised by Professor David Smales. Somehow I feel like Professor Nicholas, you have something to do with this.
I'll take a cue from my colleague John. I wanted to begin by trying to describe to you everything else that was going on in Ryan's life while he was working on this thesis. This is one of the most involved students I think I've ever met in my 36 years of teaching. And Google the word dedicated, his picture will probably show up somewhere after you do that. Ryan came to me with a very interesting, very big topic. He wanted to write about how the term socialism is used in political debates. And my first reaction was to say, maybe we should narrow that down a little bit, Ryan. And we did. We narrowed it into the way in which the term socialism has been used in the history of organized labor and the relationship between labor unions and socialist movements. And I do want to give a shout out to my colleague, John Hubricks. He was very instrumental in helping Ryan with some of the history of the labor movement. I think we both have to thank him for that help. But what Ryan created was a thesis that really ended up demonstrating that no matter what the politics of a particular labor union was, whether it was to the left, to the center, or to the right, socialism is a tag that every labor union has had to deal with and has been a part of its history. It was a very interesting thesis. It brought together a lot of history, but also a real sense of the way in which political debates happen around terms like socialism. And in the end, I think what Ryan demonstrated was that we can't really talk about movements like the labor movement without dealing with the way in which its critics tried to attack it. It was a brilliant thesis. It was well done. So please join me in congratulating the very smart, very dedicated, and all too tall Ryan.
Our next thesis writer is Aidan Murray, whose thesis factors in the well-being of adopted children. The literature review was supervised by Professor Adam Framingham.